Ladies and gentlemen, I am Ironworker814 and you have found your way to the Ironworker Gaming channel. Today we are going to be taking a look at the Graviton Lance's performance here in 2020. As always, this video will be tailored to a lower skill player's perspective since it is being done by a lower skill player. Now, I'm not a bad player, I'm just lower skill, okay? If you would like to support my channel and share some of your awesomeness with me, liking and subscribing is the best way to do that. And if you'd like to get notified when my future content releases, go ahead and ring the bell. Now, I don't know if you remember or not, or if you were playing at the time, but way back in year 1 of Destiny 2, Graviton Lance was good. And I mean, it was really, really good. This was a top tier option. Now, it's barely seeing any use. So what the heck happened to this gun? I can't remember the last time I was killed with this thing in the Crucible. So why don't we see it anymore? Is it actually still good? Could it possibly be competitive still? Maybe this is one of those hidden gems that we could find that everyone else is just breezing over. So I think we're going to try to answer some of these questions by reviewing this gun in the current season and sandbox. So let's take a look at an overview of this gun before we dig into how it performs. The Graviton Lance is a 2-round burst exotic void pulse rifle. Has 30 in the magazine. It is shooting 257 rounds a minute. The stability stat is maxed out and the range stat is also looking very nice. And to be honest with you, handling and reload speed are not too shabby also. The exotic intrinsic trait is Black Hole. Second shot of a burst rips a hole through space-time, doing high damage and recoil with no fall off. The barrel perk is Hammer Forged Rifling for increased range. Accurized Rounds is your magazine perk. This weapon can fire long distances, so that increases the range. Cosmology is the unique perk to this weapon. Kills with this weapon cause enemy targets to detonate and spawn void projectiles that track targets. And your stock is fitted stock. Increased stability, moderately controls recoil, slightly decreases handling speed. This weapon does have a Masterwork Catalyst you can acquire. Once it is punched out, you get better target acquisition. As you can see, I just put this Masterwork on the weapon, and your requirements to unlock the Masterwork are enemies defeated and cosmology kills. As far as the time to kill values go, we are coming in at 1 second for our optimal TTK and 1.9 seconds for our body shot TTK. Now we're going to dive into why these numbers are so important to this gun in 1 minute, but first let's get into the pros. The Graviton Lance is one of 2 weapons in Destiny 2 that will fire a 2-round burst, the other being the Warden's Law hand cannon. The second round of the burst has no damage fall off, and the bulk of the damage is coming out with the second round of the burst. I'm talking like 70-80% of the damage is packed into that second bullet. The recoil of this gun is pretty easy to manage. When you pull the trigger, it kind of just pops straight up into the air and comes straight down, settles in real quick for you for your next burst. The Cosmology perk on this weapon can be quite spectacular if you get a group of enemies bunched up, but you're not going to see it proccing a whole lot in PvP. And unfortunately, that's kind of going to do it for the pros of this weapon. I used it a good bit recently in the Crucible, and most of those matches I found myself switching to my shotgun just because I felt like I was so disadvantaged when using this weapon I couldn't make it work. So let's get into the cons and see why this weapon is not performing well. So remember when I said that the bulk of the damage is coming out with the second round of the burst? That makes this weapon perform more like a scout rifle. And when you're comparing this weapon to other weapons, it's not a pulse rifle. You have to look at it as if it's a scout rifle. Now when you're using a scout rifle, The bullet from the initial trigger pull very reliably lands right on the crosshairs. With the Graviton Lance, it is imperative that you land the second shot of the burst. Otherwise, your damage is just not going to be there. And it is much harder to ensure that second bullet landing with the Graviton Lance than it is with your standard scout rifle. When you start to look at the raw damage numbers for the Graviton Lance, things get much worse. Your precision shots, first round is doing 16, second round is doing 58 for a total of 74. For your body shot damage, first round will do 10, second round will do 36, for a total of 46 per burst. Now let's refer back to scout rifles again real quick. Your high impact scout rifles, those are the ones firing at 150 rounds a minute, can down a guardian in 3 headshots in 0.8 seconds. The Graviton Lance, while it is a pulse rifle that is supposedly firing at 257 rounds a minute, really needs to be divided in half because we're treating it like a scout rifle, bringing its rate of fire down to 128 rounds per minute. Just like high impact scouts, you will need 3 trigger pulls to down a guardian, but with the Graviton Lance, you need to land all 6 shots on the head. And it takes 1 second to do that because of the decreased rate of fire when compared to high impact scouts. Now when looking at the body shot time to kill, you are looking at roughly 1.9 seconds. This is requiring 5 trigger pulls to down a guardian, and you must land 9 bullets. That is just, it's an eternity in this game right now. So why would you use the Graviton Lance over a high impact scout? Quite simply, you wouldn't, and you shouldn't. So what happened to this weapon? Why is it performing so poorly, when at one time it was a mainstay in most Guardians' inventory? First thing you have to consider is the sandbox it was being used in. It was very strong when we were still in the double primary meta. In Warmind, this gun got switched from the 3-round burst that standard pulse rifles fire at to the 2-round burst unique to Graviton Lance, which made it a powerhouse. Also, at the time, scout rifles needed 4 shots to kill, so the optimal TTK of 1 second made this your most efficient and most reliable long-range weapon. Roughly 5 months later, we had the Forsaken expansion release. The sandbox changes implemented here absolutely decimated the Graviton Lance. Shotguns, sniper rifles, and fusion rifles were moved back into the special ammo slot, which is where the Graviton Lance sits. Hand cannons moved back to the top of the meta, and the TTK values among various other weapon classes were clipping down into the sub 1 second range. Later in that same year came another round of sandbox tuning, which allowed the high impact scouts to become 3-shot kills. This, unfortunately, was the nail in the coffin for the Graviton Lance. If you're looking at the damage numbers for all the weapons available in Destiny 2, and you look at the Graviton Lance, it is clear to see it is one of your worst Crucible options in the game. When compared to other weapons, it just does not have a place in PvP right now. With the Shadowkeep expansion, I kinda got excited because they said pulse rifles were going to be getting a 30% damage buff, but unfortunately this was only for PvE game modes, which did the Graviton Lance no good in the Crucible. So basically, we're sitting here looking at a weapon that has been untouched since the Warmind expansion. The game has just moved on without it. It has outdated damage values, and it cannot be taken seriously until there is an update done to this weapon. In the sandbox we're playing in, and in the state of the Graviton Lance, there is no reason to be using this in PvP. Stick it back in your vault, and wait for some changes to be made. It's kind of sad to see a weapon that was so highly regarded fall into a state of disrepair like this. Maybe someday it'll be usable again. As always, if you enjoyed the video, liking and subscribing, greatly appreciated, and hit that bell to get notified if you so choose. If you want to comment down below, that is the best way to get a hold of me. I also live stream on Twitch, generally on the weekends starting at 9 p.m. Eastern Time, or you could message me or tweet at me on Twitter. But all that being said, thank you very much for spending a piece of your day on my video. You guys are awesome, and I will catch you on the next one.